it would be crazy if every single tactic I tried worked. That's not how life works, right? It's absolutely the power law. Sometimes founders are looking for something so perfect in the early days. I didn't really have any marketing experience going into this. Maybe there's something a lot better I could have done, but there is no need to have this perfect channel from day one. You just need a couple of things to work.
Welcome to the PO. I'm your host, Turner Novak, founder of Nant Capital. Today's guest is Daryna Kulya, co-founder of OpenPhone, the world's best business phone.
Small businesses, they wanted something that just works.
Our conversation is a masterclass on startup marketing, chronicling the first 6 years of OpenPhone, how they acquired their first customers, and inside all the different channels they use to scale the business.
True word of mouth happens when you are really exceeding those expectations. But the one thing that we did to really compensate, which I think more founders should do, is just incredible customer service.
We talk about how they cracked marketing on Facebook groups and Reddit.
The only reason why I even came across this and because of constraints, like we did not have any money. Constraints are a blessing because they make you more creative and they really think outside of the box.
What you learned raising money after YC.
It felt like things were going well because we were having a meeting after meeting after meeting. But in retrospective, that is not a good sign.
How their customer base evolved over time.
What is the exact job that they're kind of hiring our product to do? That helps us finding these pockets of customers.
And advice on cold outbound, SEO, founder-led content, and press coverage.
Doing press isn't necessarily just a customer acquisition channel. It's something that can help your other channels. At least a little bit of press coverage. It kind of builds trust a little bit.
Before we talk to Daryna, I publish new episodes every week exploring the world's greatest startup stories. Check the links in the show notes and subscribe to make sure you never miss a future episode. Daryna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited. We're going to talk about some stuff you just launched, the early days of OpenPhone, your company, a lot of learnings. But can you really quick, what is OpenPhone? Just to set the stage for people.
Yeah, for sure. Look, we are at the very core, we're a business phone solution for startups and small businesses. Pretty straightforward. We give you business phone numbers for you and your team. So calling, texting, contacts, a lot of things you expect from a phone, but we do so much more on top of it. Like we allow you and your team to collaborate on responding to customers. Like you get a lot of texts from customers, you can collaborate and kind of get back to folks quickly. We have integrations and automations to really allow you to be more efficient as you talk to customers.
Interesting. So like instead of your personal number, like your iPhone, you can respond on your computer. You have an OpenPhone app.
Absolutely.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So for a lot of businesses, there are folks who are early stage who use a personal phone number for their company. And I can tell you many reasons why that's a bad idea. But one of the things is like, as you grow, you want to, of course, you're getting customers, you want to grow, you want to get more customers. But if it's you as the founder who gives people the cell phone number, as much as it's great, what ends up happening is like, you're going to have a lot of calls, a lot of messages, and you're not going to be able to get back to everyone. So we allow you to have a separate phone number that supports calling messages, messaging, the whole thing, and you can have your team kind of like help you out. And there's visibility across the board.
A little bit more scalable.
100%. But it's also very, I think, we are in a space with a lot of established solutions for bigger companies. The idea of a business phone isn't necessarily novel, but the way we've executed on it and what we are doing, because, hey, we're in this new world where like the way businesses communicate these days is like completely different than what it was like years ago. We have, companies that are remote where like the idea of a desk phone is like...
The Cisco phone.
Right.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about. It was like over 30.
Like even the emoji, when you are sending someone the emoji of a phone, it's like this red phone.
It's like the pickup phone with the cord, the wire.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we in startups think that that's hilarious, like no one has that, but you'd be surprised also how many companies still have desk phones. So for some of our larger clients, we are replacing those and giving everyone on their team just an app that they can use instead.
And that's, I guess, a pretty big deal then, like game changer for some companies. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had someone actually the other day like I always obviously talk about what we do at OpenPhone, but I had someone who was just like, oh my God, this person told me that they don't need to ask their team members to drive into the office when it's like a snowstorm to respond to calls. And I just
because they had a landline.
And I just for a second, I'm here talking about AI automation, all these million things that we do in the product. Yeah. But at the end of the day, someone is like, oh, I don't have to have my employees drive into the office to use a landline.
Interesting. Huh. So. Okay. I also want to give a shout out to one of your investors, Brian Murray at Craft. He gave us a bunch of topics to talk about. So shout out to him.
He's amazing.
For the help. Yeah. And you recently did a big launch where I think the way you described it, you went from closed phone, quote unquote, to actually open phone. Like, what was the launch?
Totally. Yeah. We're finally OpenPhone. We can I feel like we've earned the name now. We opened up our API. We essentially, like, what we've learned over the years of building OpenPhone is that we have a very diverse customer base, and every business out there is very particular about the way that they want to communicate with their customers. So it's impossible for us to create something that every business, will be able to adopt. What we find is important for us to do is give people the building blocks to create the workflows that make sense for us. So we've launched a really amazing visual call flow builder. So whatever kind of company you are, if you do phone support, for example, instead of us guessing what kind of routing you want, you can build your own perfect workflow in terms of how calls get distributed. Also, very soon, we're going to do that for text messages too, which is, there's going to be more.
Why is that a big deal? Like routing the call?
Yeah. So, on that specifically, right? If you're a team, if you're doing inbound sales, if you're doing customer support over the phone, it's actually really important that the call that comes in, for example, you have an enterprise client, that call should be going to a very different person than you have a prospect calling from the website. So as companies grow, they really want to have more control over who gets the calls and how that happens. So as I think is like a classic example, your enterprise prospect should be connected with a person on your team who is like dealing with enterprise deals, doing enterprise deals. Okay. So that's an example. Yeah.
So like a way to think about it is it's almost like a better Google Voice. Hopefully that's not like a derogatory description, but it's just like a better custom phone.
Well, like 100 times better, but Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot. Hey, I'm okay when people say that. I think, we've built so much on top of it, and we really are building it for business, right? Because what we are seeing is that, when you're a scaling company, especially, and again, you have teams doing support on the phone, and again, it's voice and SMS. You have your sales team texting prospects, right? That's like a big deal these days. There are a lot of things that people are doing that our competitors haven't really caught up with. So we are just like bringing this category into the new world. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, and actually a couple episodes ago, it was just all about like sales, basically. It was like how to be really good at sales. One of the big tips was get your customers on a text basis as fast as possible.
Totally.
Because it turns into less of a, corporate, trying to sell you something versus just like, hey, Daryna, like this, like, hope you're happy birthday, or just like, more informal. Versus it feels like you're selling them something.
It's all about relationships, right? And also, I think if you think about someone's inbox, it's just, I don't know. I know my inbox is a hot mess. It's impossible to kind of stand out. And I think the way you're actually talking about it is great, because when people think about using SMS in sales, sometimes they just immediately think about cold texting, which is actually illegal. Don't do that. I always tell people it is illegal. Yeah. Cold texting is illegal.
Wait, what? I text people when I don't wait. So how does that work?
Okay, I'm here, not a lawyer, no legal advice, but if you're a business texting folks like your customers, and if you don't have consent, meaning you are never going to have consent if it's a cold message, that is in fact illegal. Now, if you're some people may not get caught. Again, I'm not a lawyer here, kind of like use your own kind of also judgment. But from a perspective of like, if you're a business entity and you have let's say you go and tell your sales reps to cold text a bunch of leads. That's a great way to get a bunch of fines.
Wow.
And
but
I
you
would
can
not
do
recommend.
this. You can do this with email. Email's totally cool.
Well,
To just be like, hey, check it on my product.
yeah, no, I think the thing here is that, when it comes to a phone as a channel, when it comes to SMS, the thing you would also imagine is like, as a consumer, who wants to get any promotional text in their messages? Like it's so much more personal, right? It's your phone number. It is your, like, I think most people treat their SMS inbox as a sacred place.
Yep.
And if you're there sending unsolicited, like, SMS, kind of like SMS marketing, I think and again, the key is consent. If you said, hey, I want to receive text messages from this brand, that's fine. But if you're just getting them without consent, that's where it's both a really bad customer experience, but it's also illegal. You can get fined.
Okay.
The fines are really high too, by the way.
What's the fine? Like, what's the amount?
We're talking, I don't know on top of my head, but there's like a lot of nuances, but we're talking like hundreds and potentially even some fines I saw like $1,000 or more.
Per customer that you did it to?
Potentially, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That will drive up your CAC really quick.
Yeah, don't. This is why when people talk to me, I'm like, please, just whatever you do, don't tell your sales reps, to send cold texts. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, good to know, I guess. So, but the strategy then is actually like get people to opt in to getting messages from you.
Well, look, I think, yeah.
Or you're on a call with a customer, or you give them your number and they can text you or something. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think it's going back to the example you provided. It is all about, building relationships, and it's all about kind of the customer, if the customer is uncomfortable, they won't do this. Some customers may be like, no, sorry, let's stick to email. But I think that what people do is they just say, hey, like, here's my number, text me if you have any questions. I think that's like a much better way to do it. It's both allows the customer to decide if they want to do that, and also you're on the right side here. You're.
Yeah, I feel like too, depending on the customer and what you're doing, it might be a more comfortable channel. Like I think of like a 17-year-old kid trying to figure out how to email or something. Like they need to register and create an email address or something. Like it might just be easier to text. So
totally.
For certain people, certain demos or preferences, somebody might not work in an office and they just don't use email, so text might actually be
faster.
better.
I think it's faster. It's such a powerful channel. Also, of course, because I think about it all the time, given the nature of our product, I'm such a, I think about texting and calling all the time. Yeah. Maybe I'm a little too close to it, but to me, it's such a perfect channel because, a phone number is, every single person has a phone number.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of responsibility, but also there's a lot of, it's both power and responsibility.
So going back to the very early days of OpenPhone, what's the story? You can start this wherever you want.
Oh man, yeah. Depends how much time you have.
I think we got a while. So
we have time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you're from Ukraine originally.
Yeah. Well, like my story goes back. Then we really need time. I was born and raised in Ukraine and came initially to the U.S. as an exchange student.
This is in high school.
High school, my last year of high school was an exchange program that I did in Texas, actually. And
wow, that's a big difference from Ukraine.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
I was actually crying when I landed because I couldn't understand people.
Did you know English, or the accents were just different?
Well, I thought I knew English, but clearly it was a whole new game, right? I mean, I could probably read and sort of understand.
Okay.
And I studied English. It was like such a humbling moment because I think it was just like understanding the language. And of course, I think people in Texas, there's like it's sort of like a special maybe kind of flavor to it as well. I just had such a hard time understanding people. That was a moment. So I got there on an exchange program, and I like immediately fell in love with the US, with the culture. I kind of felt like, oh man, like I want to grow here. I felt like I didn't know anything, and I had this desire to grow and learn and study and maybe even get into an American college. But the rules of the program were that I had to go back home after the exchange program. So I did that. But then the rules of the program did not say that I cannot go to another country after. So instead of staying in Ukraine too long, I thought, hey, I can't go to the US yet. I've been there, I kind of have to wait it out or whatever. And I thought I would, go to Canada. And I ended up going to university in Canada, and basically from that point on, kind of building my life, my career in Canada. And funny enough, when we started OpenPhone and got into YC, we moved to San Francisco for the batch, and we ended up staying here. So it's kind of interesting for me to be back in the US now.
Yeah. So then when you started the company, was it 2017 or 18 technically?
So 18, we started kind of 17 is when we started kind of working on it. And
okay. How did it all get started? Like what was the initial insight?
Look, so the idea came from my co-founder, Mahir, who is also, by the way, my husband. We, at the time we were in a relationship, we were together. And I guess the idea came from him, and I was the person who kind of observed it and was like, oh man, this is too cool. Like I can help. So the insight was the fact that, so Mahir's former coworker ported his phone number from a traditional carrier to like a virtual solution. And, I think engineers do this kind of things. A regular consumer is probably never going to do this.
Like an insane lift for just like something that just kind of
Just imagine whatever carrier you have. I don't know if it's AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon.
Yep. I don't know. I'm not going to say it publicly so I don't get hacked. But
yeah.
But okay. No, it's one of those.
Right. So let's say you basically ditch your SIM card and you go from one of the top carriers. And in Canada, people usually do like.
Oh, yeah. Canada has like insane just like monopoly telecom practices, basically.
Which also is one of the things, right? Because a lot of people in Canada actually, and this is like a common thing I've seen, is like a lot of Canadians actually like try to find ways to save money on their cell phone bill.
Really?
Yeah, because Canadians pay, I think, potentially like the highest in the world for cell phone, because the country is so big and there's not enough people, and it is a crazy monopoly, right?
Oh, so they have a lot of infrastructure to support 10 times fewer people than live in the US, but it's like the same area.
It's 10 times fewer people, but the country, like from a...
they need to spread their CapEx over a larger area. You got to cover Saskatchewan, which is like not that many people, but pretty big area.
I would suppose so, right? And, I think I know a lot of people who kind of were thinking about solutions to the problem of just how expensive it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, so essentially, Mahir's coworker was like, hey, like, do you want to like port your phone number from, Rogers or something to this unknown kind of scrappy app that allows you to have your calls and messages routed through the internet?
Yep.
And he just said, sure, why not? Like he kind of, as an engineer, I think he kind of had this.
Oh, he just like wanted to try it.
He wanted to try it. Yeah. I think it was kind of some sort of like a fun experiment, right? And so he did that, and I saw him basically give up his SIM card, his real sort of SIM card, and use this app he was using together with a data-only SIM card he got.
And now it just became his personal phone.
Exactly.
So you were like texting him, calling him about it.
We were talking. Yeah, we were talking. We also were at the time long distance. We were talking on the phone all the time. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Like you're gonna do that. And he went and did this. And what was so apparent, is that the when he did this, the quality of his calls was actually so much better because he had super high speed internet, and his carrier coverage wasn't as good as the speed of his Wi-Fi connection.
Interesting.
So he had better call quality. He had ability to control everything about his phone number. He could travel and not pay roaming fees. All these advantages. But there was one thing which was so annoying, is that this app that he ended up using was just like terrible. And him being a product person, I'm a product person too, but I think him specifically, being an engineer and a product and a designer and a product person, he kind of said, oh, cool, like I'm just going to I'll build something a lot better. And initially he was essentially kind of building it for himself.
Yep.
But very quickly it was apparent to both of us that there was something bigger here. And, what I did was like, I'm more of a coming into this from a sales and marketing perspective. I just thought, hey, like, this is so cool.
We can get other people to pay us for this. Or
exactly.
Use it. Yeah.
I just thought like, hey, like, let me get you some customers, sort of like from that perspective. And that's what we did. And it kind of like all grew from there.
Was there the closest thing that existed at the time that you could have used instead of OpenPhone? Just like, were there other options, or was this not even really a thing that people did?
There were some options, but I think that, so I guess when I'm also now trying to remember, because this was, 2017, right?
Yeah, I guess we're going back.
We're going back, right? The one thing in Canada as well is like in the US, there's been Google Voice. Google Voice at the time did not work in Canada.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So there really wasn't options.
And there were potentially some smaller kind of solutions, but there was really nothing that was kind of like that had any sort of traction. And it kind of just felt like you either have to use, one of the more established solutions like RingCentral, for example. They're a public company. They're really more for like larger companies, or
it's like boomer tech. I mean, you go to their website and you're like, oh man, I don't even want to know what the product looks like.
Hey, you said it. I did not say it. I am just sitting here.
I've seen like a screenshot, but it always amazes me. You'll go to like Salesforce is like a $300 billion, $100 billion company. I don't know what the stock price is at, but you're like, fascinating.
I mean, the biggest frustration is like you can't even, the truth is they are really optimized for enterprise and optimized for the sales-led motion, right? So if you want to sign up for just yourself, I tried it. I don't even know how it's going to go, right? Yeah. So we really saw this like really big gap on the market. And hey, frankly, like for me also at this time, like going back to this moment of kind of like having this beta version of OpenPhone, putting it in front of people, I myself honestly was surprised just how much demand there was, even when the product was not even beta, like alpha, like super alpha. It was just that this need on the market for something that was easy to use, simple, that just worked for smaller businesses. And that's how we got our in. That was our kind of wedge into the market.
Okay. And then you did not have this kind of open ecosystem initially. And is that because it was just like, you didn't need to, like the initial ICP didn't care enough, like just wasn't worth it for them? They just needed, like, this actually probably solved the problem pretty well, right?
100%. So it's interesting because you were asking me about our launch, and we just announced our open API, so now people can take OpenPhone and sort of like do a lot of things with it.
Yeah.
But you're right. We started out being a very simple sort of, here's everything you need and kind of nothing more type of product. Because again, it was just the two of us working on it, right? So we started out as a very sort of kind of everything you need is in here. And you're right. For a while, we did not really have the need of kind of opening our API and offering all these customization options, because the need we were solving was that for small businesses, they wanted something that just works. They wanted to sign up for the product, spend no more than 5 minutes, right? Like there's this metric of like, if it's more than 5 minutes, it's too complicated.
Like magic moment, I think some people call it, like how fast you get that.
Especially for small business owners, right? Because they don't have a massive team. They're busy growing their business and trying to figure out their business. They don't want to be dealing with your tools and whatever. They just want something that works, right? Yep. And that was our initial kind of ICP, and we really needed to be simple, easy, and like everything just works out of the box.
So then how did you decide, like, let's start a company around this? Like, was there a moment when you're like, okay, fun, like, cool project we hacked together? It's like, oh shit, like, let's start selling it.
Right. So, I mean, I think this start selling it too, for me, was kind of like, that's such a good question, because I'm trying to remember if there was like a single moment. It was kind of like very natural. I think at some point I realized that I'm just so kind of obsessed with the problem we're solving. I think for me at some point it was, I think for Mahir, he left his job. He was basically kind of as he was kind of exploring this, he was looking for something to build and something to grow.
Okay.
For me, I kind of was like, okay, interesting. This is pretty cool. But like the moment that I realized that I am like fully in is that I just could see the impact we're having on our customers. And I could see that even though the product is just so incredibly like early, and we don't have nearly all the features people need, I could just see how like people are so engaged and so excited. And for me, the more I was talking to customers, the more excited I got. And at some point it was like, okay, we're both all in, like we're doing it. I wish there was one moment, but it kind of just kind of happened. Or maybe it's my memory, to be honest. I'm like,
you maybe it's like there's a lot. I mean, lots happened since then. So well, so how did you get the first people to start using it? Like, I don't know, first 1,000 customers. Like you've written like a blog post about this, but like, so you went from 0, I think it was like 0 to 100, the first couple people. Yeah. What was the strategy to just get it out there and get people to start using it?
For sure. So, for our kind of type of product, right? We know that the idea of a business phone, like people know they need a business phone usually, right?
Yeah, every business, like every employee kind of, or desk worker probably has a phone of some kind.
Right. And also I think like even for us initially thinking about business owners and like going after them, because we couldn't initially with our product serve like a bigger company. We were basically going after very, very tiny, like micro businesses. The question in my mind was never like I kind of didn't really feel we needed a ton of validation for the idea. We already had those validation points. It was more about how do we, without having a single dollar spent on marketing, how can we for free basically get in front of people who we think could use our product. So for me, I just immediately thought Facebook groups. I mean, maybe now I'm kind of aging myself, but at the time that felt
people
like
maybe still used it in 2017.
Yeah,
I think people still do. I mean, it's still 2 billion users or whatever. People still use it. But
Thank you. You're making me feel better. But I mean, I just had this idea of like Facebook groups because I realized that there is a Facebook group out there for everyone and everything. So it was crazy for me not to try it because I could just see all these groups for all kinds of business owners, for all kinds of entrepreneurs. So I joined like over 60 of them. And I'm still in those groups, like real estate agents of North Carolina. Guess what? I'm in that group. Like, that's just an example,
Yeah.
All kinds of groups.
So what do you do? Do you go like, hey guys, try OpenPhone? Or like, what's a good approach to like, to tactfully insert yourself and make the marketing in the Facebook group work?
Absolutely. Look, so I joined a bunch of groups, right? And I think initially it was like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of joined a whole bunch.
Yep.
And the first thing I did was I would first listen to and kind of observe what's happening in the group. And the one thing I saw is that in some groups, there was already discussion sort of related to the problem we're solving. There were people in some groups talking about Google Voice. I was like, oh, cool. Good to know. And other discussions, people were talking about the problem of, hey, I have a business. I'm using my personal phone number. I get calls all the time. What do I do? Yep. So I could see in some groups there were those discussions. Yep. And I thought, okay, I will join these discussions. But then also I thought, how do I post about OpenPhone and just try to get some feedback in a sort of like classy, hopefully way. And what I learned really is that it's, I did some posts where I was like, hey, I'm working on OpenPhone. Do you want to check it out? Link. I got banned a couple of times. Like, that was not working. But
it was like too obvious, basically?
Well, it was obvious, but it was also like, some of these groups have a moderator, and a moderator doesn't want people, like if they allow me to do it, they have to allow everyone to do it. And it's just not fair. So really the idea was, can't be the spammy sort of like link. I can't be dropping links. I should be kind of contributing to the conversation. So what I ended up doing in some of these groups, I would post and I would say, hey, here's the problem I'm working. I've noticed in my own family, like I know that when you have a small business, here's the issue that people deal with in terms of calls. Do you have the same problem? Hey, is this a problem you've run into? How have you solved it? So instead of me necessarily immediately dropping OpenPhone. I'm just being like, hey, here's the problem I'm solving. Do you have this problem? And if so, how are you solving it? And I just got a conversation going, basically. So then when you look at that thread, it looks more of like an organic conversation between people versus dropping OpenPhone. And then when I did drop OpenPhone somewhere there were people who were like, oh, hey, like, I want to help you out. Let me sign up. Let me like join your beta. There are people who said, hey, I'm interested, but maybe essentially there are people who are willing to provide that feedback. But it took a lot of trial and error. So I wish there was like an easy answer. It took trialing a bunch of things. It took being in a lot of different groups. But what we were able to do, to be honest, is very simple. You don't really need at this stage of the company, you don't need anything scalable, right? You also don't need, it would be crazy if every single sort of like tactic I tried worked. That's not how life works, right? A couple of posts in a couple of groups did really well. I had posts in groups that had like 40 plus 50 comments.
So it was like power law, where some just duds and then some got you like 100 customers.
100%. There were some groups where there are still customers who we met and who I met through those who are still customers now, like 7 years later. So it's absolutely the power law. You don't need all 60 to work, right? A couple of those worked, and that was enough because then we could get the signal and then we could work with those customers, and we had our beta users. So then it's like a whole new game to get to scale from there. But like, I just feel like sometimes founders are looking for something so perfect in the early days. Again, maybe like I didn't really have any marketing experience going into this. Maybe there's something a lot better I could have done, but there is no need to have this perfect channel from day one. You just need a couple of things to work, because if you're starting from zero, you just need a couple of channels.
Going from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 2, that's 100% growth. Like, to your point, you just need to make sure people need the problem solved and like your solution is working in some capacity and people want to pay you for it. Like, I don't think you can really be like, you can't go out and be like, all right, we have limited budget features, et cetera. I'm just going to like spend a bunch of money on scalable ads. Like, that's a later problem.
100%. Much later problem. I think it's really kind of when you're seeking product market fit, it's more about asking questions than necessarily, and this is why I actually think some of the things we did at that point were a lot of conversations. The goal for me was actually talking to people, whether it's async on Facebook. I was on Facebook all the time, to be honest. Like, I don't really go there anymore, but like I was spending so much time on Facebook because I had all these groups and people, I was messaging people everywhere. I was just like probably too much on Facebook. But the goal was like having conversations, because conversations allow you to learn and then iterate and be closer to finding your channel. That's the goal. You can't get to conversations if you're just spamming people with your link.
And did word of mouth work pretty well for you guys? Like, was that a channel that, or how did that go? Like, are people like hanging out with their other entrepreneur friends, like, oh, here's this thing that I use? Like, how did you really crack that?
Honestly, word of mouth took so much longer. It just took way longer. To me, that first phase of sort of getting our beta customers, even our first paying customers, we definitely had some word of mouth. But now that I kind of look back, word of mouth really only started happening for us when I think there's like two things. Word of mouth happens when you exceed customer expectations. So with some customers who were coming in from like using a personal phone number or using something like really terrible, we could exceed their expectations fairly easily. But like word of mouth really works when you have that like differentiated product, incredible customer service. You got to have things that you're doing that like blow people's, blow people away.
To make them want to talk about it.
Absolutely. And when you're asking about it, going back to those days, it just took longer than I expected to get to like real word of mouth. Of course, we had people talking about it here and there, but like true word of mouth happens when you are really exceeding those expectations. And maybe one thing that we did, I'll tell you, that helped us, right? It takes a while, for the product to exceed expectations because there's a lot of building involved, right?
Yep.
But the one thing that we did to really, really compensate, which I think more founders should do, is just incredible customer service. Like I was the customer service rep for a long time.
Okay.
And I used our own product. I used OpenPhone to
do
text,
customer support in the phone with the customers.
To do customer support. And it makes so much sense, right? Using our own product being in our own product with our customers.
You were taking the point of view of your customers, giving support to their customers to support your customers.
All the time. Okay. Absolutely. I was on a texting, going back to, we talked a little bit about SMS and sort of getting on a texting basis. I was on a texting basis with every single customer. So from a word of mouth point of view, maybe our product couldn't immediately like blow people away.
Yep.
But what we did was, even from those kind of early days, every single person who signed up for OpenPhone got a text message from me saying, "Hey, welcome to OpenPhone. I'm Daryna. I'm here to help you. Like, text me whenever," because guess what? I responded around the clock. But like, I was there with our customers, texting back and forth, learning, helping. A lot of it was like, "Hey, I'm having an issue with this," and I would help them out. But then I would ask, "I'm curious, like, what brought you to OpenPhone?" Right? So I was playing I was the support agent, but I was also trying to use that as an opportunity to learn about both like the customers and their pain points, and also what we can do better, both from a product standpoint and from the marketing standpoint.
Did you tell people like I'm the founder of OpenPhone, or how did you position it? Or what would you do today if you could change what you did?
I'm trying to remember, to be honest, because there was this message, right? This automated message that we would send, kind of to every person who signed up from the app.
Okay.
That was, again, coming from me.
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember if I said that I'm one of the founders. Possibly, I have to check. I actually don't remember. But I was pretty, to be honest, we were so, in some cases, the truth is that in some cases, I was very honest. I was like, "Hey, I'm one of the founders." But then there were other cases, frankly, when people would call this number and it's really just me. And, I was I didn't know I kind of felt uncomfortable just being like, "Hi, this is Daryna." Like, I thought we needed to portray to be more kind of professional. Like a
corporate type of like, we're a massive company.
I mean, even like we are a company, So I would just respond, be like, "Hi, OpenPhone support, Daryna speaking." And it was so funny because and people were like, "Oh, you have such great support." I always get routed to the same agent. And I was like, "There's no other agent here." Yeah. But I think it depends. Look, if I went back in time, I would probably lean into that more. I think I was a little bit maybe shy about the fact that we are just two people working on this. Yeah. And the truth is that the people who would have been using us in those days, they're like they're the most early adopters you can find, because only early adopters will trust a new product, at that phase, right? Yeah. So, and early adopters actually, I think, appreciate being like, "Hey, I'm user number 5, I'm user number, number 1.
I'm talking to the person who built this product, like the founders of the company."
Exactly.
I think there's something to be said, like I guess being like in Silicon Valley, like you meet founders all the time, but just like if you're run a random business, like a plumbing company in Nebraska, and you're like, "Oh man, I'm talking to the founders of this. Like, this is pretty cool." Like Sergey Brin or like Sam Altman doesn't respond in Chat GPT when you talk to it, right? Like you're talking to like the founder of the company. Like that can be a powerful thing. I feel
that could be. Yeah. I think I was very much shying away from this. And I only later realized to kind of lead into it more and kind of be like, "Hey, yes, I know we are a very small team, but here's what we can do for you." So yeah, maybe something to be said about leaning into that more.
So then because the beginning of the product, the first couple months or the first like a couple hundred or 1,000 users, it was all free, right? No one paid anything.
Yep.
How did you then roll out a paid product for the first time?
Yes. So that's right.
Did you add new features? Like what was the plan and like the successful rollout of this thing?
Totally. So here's what happened. We knew we're going to start charging. Also, I mean, yeah, we knew there's going to be a point when we start charging, but we were, as most founders, I think, uncomfortable doing that.
Okay.
Because I think there's a
It's
level
hard to ask people for money sometimes.
It is. I mean, it's kind of, you need to have, maybe you know founders who aren't like this, but like a lot of people I know, they're all kind of like, just, you know, as a founder, sometimes you see your product in the worst possible way because you know too much about it. But we actually did. So this was spring 2018.
Okay.
And we were considering applying for YC, and we were in Toronto, and there was this kind of event where we could do YC office hours with a YC partner, and we got matched to do office hours with Yuri Sagalov. And again, we were not a YC company. We were just like working on OpenPhone and considering applying. So we went through this, you know, we applied for these office hours, and we got a chance to talk to, I remember we talked to Yuri, and he asked us, he was like, hey, like, when are you going to start charging? And we were like, yeah, like, eventually, you know. And he's like, well, why don't you just do it now? Like, what is stopping you from doing it now? And we realized it was really just our confidence in the product. But the truth is, the product already at the time, we made it a lot better. We added a bunch of things. So it was really just us internally being like, are we ready to charge for people to pay?
Yeah, because if you try to charge and no one pays, that would not be the best feeling in the world. That's
right. And, you know, like the earlier, you know, the better, right? Because, of course, right? So we just said, okay, we're gonna do it. So after those office hours, I actually remember we said, okay, we're gonna give everyone a lot of notice, and we're gonna tell people that the product is gonna be, you know, you need to start paying, I think after 30 days or something. And a lot of people, in fact, I remember about 60 people started paying us. And that was such an amazing moment because suddenly, like, they're really in. And we then started getting, so anyone from that point on who would sign up would have like a short trial and then would have to pay. And it just felt so amazing.
Why'd you do a trial versus pay right up front?
That's a great point, right? PLG, I think we're PLG in our core. I mean, we really wanted, I mean, the philosophy has always been, we always want people to experience some of it before paying.
Before they pay, okay.
We've always kind of wanted to really give you a chance to try it out. I think in some ways it's like a new concept for people. And even now, you know, we do so much more on top of this idea of a phone number. You know, we have collaboration, we have automations, we have AI, we have so much kind of magic in the product. I think this has not changed. We've always wanted for people to experience it first.
You still do a free trial.
There is a free trial.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Even though now you've got like APIs and it's all open and anyone can build on top of it.
I mean, there is a lot more you can experience in the trial. I think back in the day, the trial was like, you know, there's maybe less you can do, but I think we just philosophically wanted people to experience it before making that decision.
And then so people started paying. I know that you started using Reddit, and that has like kind of worked pretty well for you guys over time. Is that a true statement?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Reddit has been amazing for us. I mean, I think that essentially around this time that we started, the product became, you know, essentially there's now ability for people to pay and the free trial. And the Facebook groups, I think at some point I realized like we've probably done, I think, everything I could have done in terms of getting those early people signed up through Facebook groups. And I think I just kind of stumbled upon Reddit as a potential place to kind of talk about OpenPhone. I will tell you this. I think the only reason why I even came across this and started doing it is because of constraints. Like, we did not have any money. We didn't raise any money. We were still like essentially bootstrapping OpenPhone.
Yeah, you mentioned YC. Were you in YC yet or no?
So we started experimenting with Reddit right around the time that we did our YC interview. So it was kind of, we still did not have
You just
any
didn't
money.
have a lot of money to work with. Okay.
Exactly. So when you don't have much money to work with, you kind of have to be creative. So I thought, okay, Facebook groups worked to a degree.
Yep.
I can probably do something similar on Reddit. So
Similar playbook.
Similar playbook. However, going back to this idea that what I really learned is that you can't be spammy, can't be salesy. And on Reddit, the bar is so much higher. I mean, if you even have the vibe of a marketer on Reddit, get ready to be kicked out and banned forever.
They'll like downvote you and like you'll get banned from the subreddit.
And people can be so mean too, by the way. Like,
oh, really?
Really mean. Oh, yeah.
Is this like Hacker News level mean or worse, similar?
I think similar. I mean,
okay.
I know Hacker News can be pretty mean. It was actually brutal because I also was like, oh my God, I don't know if I have the stomach for this. But what essentially I started doing is, look, I joined some subreddits, and going back to, I think what works is people like to help other people and people want to hear stories. I just joined some subreddits and posted just talking about our experience, talking about like, hey, like, at the time I left my job, like I left my full-time job to work on this, on OpenPhone. And I was just very honest about it and asked people like, hey, like, is this a problem? Hopefully it's a problem. It's worth solving. But I just asked like, hey, is this a problem you have? Like, what tools are you using? What can we do to solve this problem for you? Mm-hmm. And I think if you're honest and very much kind of like, hey, I'm here, like, I would love your help. I would love your feedback. In most places, people will be very helpful back. And some of these posts did super well and ended up getting us like, Reddit really helped us tip over and into the 100+ customer range.
Those are the people that were paying. And then you did YC. You got in, right?
Around this time, this was all kind of happening around the same time. And then we got into YC. And when we got into YC, I think we were interviewing when we had about maybe 60 or something customers, something like that. And then we crossed our 100 customer mark our first month of YC. Okay.
What was YC like? Good experience?
Oh, I mean, it was amazing. I think I can't even. It was kind of life-changing, frankly. Mainly because we were surrounded. I think obviously it's the partners, the advice, and all the things, right? But I think it was so much just being around peers.
Mm-hmm. And you were in Canada.
So we moved. So we moved for YC.
Okay. Yeah. Had you applied to different accelerators and like tried to get funding at different places before this?
Well, we kind of I did some pitch competitions and we did some kind of grant applications. Nothing really worked, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think we're probably like not good at that. Okay. We applied to some programs, but like, again, nothing worked. We were kind of working on OpenPhone in the early days, we were a part of this sort of like student accelerator in Waterloo, kind of outside of Toronto, Velocity, which is amazing. And that was great.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I feel like I've heard of
Velocity
before.
Is amazing. Yeah, we were there, and then we applied to YC and we moved to San Francisco. But we just didn't really have much luck with any other kind of like programs. But now that I think back, it was probably a good thing because look, I still think that a lot of the things that we were able to do and all these, again, Reddit, Facebook groups, I think if we had even $5,000 or $10,000 available, kind of like in the bank, that would not make me as hungry as I was, knowing that I had to figure out how to get customers.
Like you would just like bought Google ads or something, or hired a marketer full time, and you would have done other stuff or something.
I just think that it's, I don't know. I think like constraints. I really believe that constraints are a blessing because they make you more creative, and they, like again, I'm not saying I necessarily would have taken the money and would have put it all into ads, but just not having that makes you really think outside of the box and kind of be like, okay, I have to figure it out without anything.
Yeah. And then, but you did end up raising money, right? So you did YC, and basically there's a demo day.
Yes.
Investors line up, and then I'm seeing people just threw money at you, right? Because it was going really well.
Oh yeah.
What was the experience like raising that seed round?
Oh man. Look, so YC was really great for us, and we've grown a ton through YC. And like I think during YC there was this like almost the feeling of being like just on this amazing ride of getting customers, feeling so great, and kind of the numbers are just going up into the right and like incredible, right? We had more demand than we knew what to do with. it was all just like amazing. In terms of raising our seed round, so maybe maybe this is where expectations are different. I don't know why, but I did think that, we presented demo day and we literally just like,
people wire you money.
People wire money like immediately. That did not happen. Spoiler alert, that did not happen.
So what happened?
What happened was we had conversations, we were talking to folks, and this being our first kind of like fundraise, it felt like things were going well because we were having like a meeting after meeting after meeting. But in retrospective, that is not a good sign, right? But I think maybe as founders going through this for the first time, it was thinking, oh, great, like they want to meet with us again. Oh, they want to meet with us again. But actually, that should have been a sign that like, no, they're not going to be investing. This is a seed investment. We were not raising that much money. Like basically, if people didn't feel strong about what we're doing and about us as a team immediately, I don't know if 10 meetings, like 10 meetings, you don't need 10 meetings to make a small seed investment.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think that looking back, we kind of, I think we just kind of learned the hard way that, you kind of have to, like, your job as a founder is to build your business and to not be fundraising. Your job is really not kind of like this process of fundraising. Your job is growing your company. And I think we kind of like maybe lost track of that a bit. So we ultimately raised an amazing seed round. We have great investors, but I certainly felt those rejections that we were getting over the course of like, I think a month or two after YC, they were really, I kind of took them personally, as I think a lot of founders do. But
yeah, especially when there's probably like a really big bet on the team, like there's not a lot of traction or data to go on. It's just like, can they build this?
And in our
saying
space,
no.
Yeah.
Invest,
oh yeah, exactly. I mean, look, and I know it's actually it's so tough. And the other thing is we are building in a very established space. I think we really kind of struggled with this, like, how are you different from these companies question. We kind of struggled with it because we are in the space where we actually need to build a lot to get to the baseline. And then we have the vision for how we want to innovate. But for you to innovate, you actually need to make the core experience really, really good. And there is a lot to be built for a product like ours.
Was building like workflows, opening up the app, like was that in the initial pitch to people?
It was for sure in the vision. And also, by the way, this is why we called the company OpenPhone, right? We always saw it as a platform, not just as an app, right? We always saw it as something that allows folks to really build powerful workflows, to integrate it into their tooling. We always saw it like that. And we talked about variations of this in the early days, but now, like with every year, we were getting closer and closer to it. And just now we finally, I think, were able to do it. But yeah, it was just tough, I think, for us, kind of as a very young company, dealing with rejection and kind of believing, like you kind of have to believe in yourself. And what helped, frankly, was, and what I'm so grateful for, is that throughout this time, we've had very direct connection to our customers. And we've had customers who are just like supporting us, giving us a lot of feedback. We have still all these Slack channels with customer feedback coming in. And for me, I just know that I always believed that what we're building is so valuable to our customers, and that feeling that got us through all those moments.
So you mentioned feedback coming in from customers in Slack. Were they talking to you on OpenPhone? Were you somehow piping it into Slack?
Oh yeah, okay. We have an amazing.
What's your stack for doing that? Like, how did you guys structure it all?
Well, we also, by the way, what I'm talking about that too is like reviews. Like we now have feedback. So we have so many sources of feedback. As much as, of course, it's OpenPhone, we have App Store reviews, Play Store reviews. There's so many review sites
G2,
these days. Everything,
etc. Yeah.
So we even then we had all of these. I actually forgot the exact kind of tools, but there are all these tools that pipe reviews from all over the internet. and you can just like instantly know what customers feel about what you're putting out.
And you had a Slack channel specifically that just aggregated it all.
Oh yeah, I mean we have even several. Maybe this is the part that like our Slack is a little crazy because we have not only do we do that, but we also have every single survey. We send a lot of surveys to people throughout their experience, asking, hey, like. Obviously the NPS question and all kinds of questions like, would you recommend OpenPhone to your friends? And we ask a bunch of things. So every single survey since then and still gets piped to its own channel in Slack. So you can, sometimes I can just open Slack and forever be reading that, you know?
Yeah, interesting. Well, so you mentioned using the customer feedback to drill down on specific ICPs. How do you recommend doing that? Anything specifically that like worked for you guys? Like, oh, real estate agents love OpenPhone. Or like, was there certain things you were able to figure out and like ICPs you were able to really drill down on based on feedback?
That's a great question. I think that one thing we were able, so maybe this is the piece we've kind of had a slightly different approach to. So we have always from the beginning known that we're building something that's applicable to a lot of different kinds of businesses. And we always tried to look at it beyond sort of like an industry or a job. The one thing that we have sort of learned is that our product and kind of one of the ICPs that has emerged is really like teams that, that rely on phone and voice and SMS is their number one channel of communication.
With a customer?
Exactly, where that's their primary channel. It's not their secondary, not tertiary channel. So
Primary,
those teams have emerged. That is a little bit broader than a specific industry, right? I think for us, the thing that we've kind of found throughout the years is that when people talk about ICPs, at least I always fear that it's like a little bit too narrow. But in reality, we see it's kind of like more about jobs to be done, right? Like what is the exact job that they're kind of hiring our product to do? And when you think of it from that perspective, that helps us a lot in terms of finding these like pockets of customers. So so that's sort of like the approach that we've taken.
Well, so another thing I know that you said that around this time, like after YC, you started doing cold emails. And cold emailing was something that worked. And I think you were like surprised how well it worked or something.
Yeah.
Is this true? So you started leaning into cold email at this time too?
Yeah. So really from a perspective of our kind of like how customer acquisition, cold email is actually was something we started doing during YC. And we started doing cold email during YC. And there was actually an interesting story about it because when we joined YC, we had our first office hours with Michael Seibel, and the first question he asked was like, how much of the batch have you signed up? And we were like, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's a thing you can do.
Exactly. Why don't you sign up everyone in YC? So we immediately started doing that. But this is kind of maybe a little bit interesting about kind of ICP and when you're an early stage company trying to find your ideal customers. The thing is that we joined YC with our early customer base that was very much traditional small businesses, folks that are, like realtors, property managers. We had massage therapists. Like the customer base we joined YC with felt super different than kind of like startup founders, right? Because YC, it's all founders.
Yep.
And during our first office hours, Michael was like, hey, like you have to go sell your product to all of these folks. Like, why aren't you doing that? And while from the ICP perspective, it may seem very different, in many cases, the problems they're looking to solve are actually the same. So we actually had great success serving a lot of YC, our batchmates and other YC founders and companies. And we found at the time that it was like, hey, it would be crazy for us to be in YC among all these folks and not leaning into that as a competitive advantage to sell to other startup founders.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was almost easier because you see, like from a cold email perspective, it's so much easier for me as a startup founder to email another founder because I know what it's like to be in their shoes. I I can send an email that feels that is probably a lot more effective because I know what that person, I hopefully know what they might be going through. I don't know. Because I can relate to them. So cold email from that sense worked really well.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting with the ICP too. One of the more recent guests of the show, Gokul Rajaram. I don't know if you've ever met him or talked to him, but like his big thing, one of his big topics in the episode was you have to drill down your ICP and make it super, super narrow, which is not what you just said, but specifically you're saying the job to be done needs to be narrowed down. So maybe it's like,
yes,
you can narrow it down to a specific like type of customer maybe, but really what that means is the thing that they need you for is a very certain specific thing. So like maybe that's really the way to think about it is that's what's narrow. It's like
100%
the thing that you're solving for someone.
I'll give you an example. I think this probably would be better with an example. Here's an example. I found that if I'm on your website and you are a small startup or a small business and you have a phone number on your website, that is a signal to me that you care enough about phone as a support or like a channel. And that to me is a much better signal that, hey, you are actually getting inbound calls and maybe messages from your customers. So I can email, for me, that is a much better signal than what industry you're in. So one thing that we learned, for example, in those times is like if you are, let's say, a startup or again, small business with a phone number on your site, you likely offer support through phone. And there is a chance you may be unhappy with your existing solution, or you may be, not, there's a million things there. So that was kind of a better signal for us. That's something that we used versus saying, oh, we're going to email people in this industry, but not this industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I think with emails too, another prior guest of the show, his like biggest hack for good cold emails is lowercase subject lines. And I noticed in some of your blog posts, you like when you were like showing screenshots of like what had worked for you, you also sometimes use lowercase subject lines. Like, was that an accident or did you actually do that on purpose?
So I did that on purpose.
Okay.
And by the way, fun fact, I just recently realized as the time has gone by, I used to be a person who was like so proper in all my communications. I'm always like, as time has gone by,
Dear Turner, it is like, I'm very excited to record this podcast today. See attached my whatever. Yeah.
As time goes, I just write less and I'm like, let me know LMK or something. Yeah, I've become a lot more of a lowercase person. But at that point, I think I know what you're referring to. Yeah, when we were doing kind of like so very intentional cold email, it was lowercase, and I did see that perform better. I think sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. The truth is that what's actually I think what's most important is just kind of relevance. So the truth is, if I email you and what I'm talking about is not relevant at all, it doesn't matter that it was lowercase or uppercase. What really matters is that you are someone like it's the right time, it's the right angle. So that was more important. And this is what I mentioned about, for us, it was easier to say because like, oh, you have a phone number on your website, so you must be getting inbound calls. So you probably care about it versus if you don't have a phone number on your website. Yeah.
So it's like you still need to like intercept them or get in front of them at the right time. But then there's also like an element of like, is there a 80% chance they see it? Is there a 1% chance? Like you want to make sure that number is as high as possible to then have a high conversion rate if you're actually hitting what they need.
But I also will mention that this whole like lowercase, uppercase kind of thing, it's actually more about people. I don't know about you, but like I tune out anything that's clearly a marketing email.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So if you see something in your inbox that really feels like it was sent to a ton of people, you're likely to just kind of skip and archive or whatever.
Yep.
The idea of whether it is doing lowercase or just being more casual, and I love plain text emails generally for everything. The idea is really like, how can I show you that this was very much like if I actually spend time writing an email, I need it to show up as a personal email versus as a marketing campaign. For me, there's nothing worse than like trying to do cold email and people being like, oh, take me off your
mailing list.
And I'm like, oh, this came in as a campaign. This should have been, this should come across as a very one-on-one message.
So do you feel like people mess that up a lot? Is like they're too like campaigny or marketing-y?
100%. I think so. Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, I always think about what kind of, also it's worth mentioning in this day and age, I think it's just so much harder to break through your inbox, right? Google filtering out a bunch of emails. You are now maybe showing up in Gmail in promotions tab.
Oh yeah.
It's just a lot harder, I think, than it was, 2018, 2019. But in my mind, like, what people, the best shot you have is trying to come across as much as possible as a human. So I always think about like, how do I write an email to a friend versus emailing in this like overly formal way, and kind of like that feels very proper and very salesy.
Yeah, especially when you're probably selling. I know you guys have upgraded a little bit to enterprise. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. But like when it's just SMB selling, like an individual, you're trying to make it a little bit more personable versus like
100%.
Corporate B2B, whatever. Like I guess the rules are maybe they're the same, but maybe they're different.
Well, I actually think, to be honest, I think when it comes to this, just my take is that it's the same. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know anyone who's excited to reply to clearly a sales email. I think the best sales emails don't feel like sales emails.
Yeah. My most common reply to a sales email is like, please remove me from the mailing list. Like that's 90% of the responses.
If you said that to me, by the way, a few times that I've received those, I'm like, it's like so soul crushing because I'm like, oh, I mean, of course I'll remove you, but I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, so talking about other channels outside of email, you guys did some press. You guys got some pretty good press coverage, and like I think you've kind of gotten some coverage throughout the life of the company. What do you find works good for just like getting press coverage? Like how do you approach those and get reporters to actually write about it versus just being like get out of my inbox. Also, please remove me from the mailing list. That's right.
I can imagine if maybe. Actually, for them, it's probably the worst. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in their inbox.
Yeah.
Frankly, for us, something that I've always heard from folks is this idea that like press is not a channel. Don't rely on press. I mean, this is the common advice.
Yeah. I mean, I have some portfolio companies where they have said we literally got no clicks from TechCrunch or something like that, or from Product Hunt.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I know you did. I know it's worked for you.
Yeah.
So what do you think made it work?
Look, I think it probably just depends on kind of like ICP and who you're selling to, right? Because if you're selling, for us, for example, Product Hunt has been amazing. And it's also cool because we just did a launch just there for our API and all the new stuff.
Did you get traction from it?
Oh, yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
But you see, I think that it's because, for a product like that, right, not only are we, again, we are appealing to startups. And then we just announced our API, and the kind of folks who hang out on Product Hunt, this is interesting to them. I think if you are first of all, if you're super enterprisey, if you're selling to large enterprise, and also maybe if you're a little bit more narrow of a focus in terms of verticals,
like selling to veterinarians or something, they're not going to be on Product Hunt.
If your ICP is not on Product Hunt, no matter what you do, nothing's going to happen, right? Also, if your ICP does not read TechCrunch, nothing's going to happen. The thing about us, right, is that we sell to startups and small businesses. And the one interesting thing is that the kinds of small businesses that love and use our product, they actually act like startups, right? They're kind of, I think the lines between tech startup and small business are very blurry.
Interesting.
So for us, I think that, when we did our TechCrunch launch, it was amazing. I mean, literally, my OpenPhone was ringing off the hook that day.
Yeah.
It was amazing for us. Anytime we did that kind of press, it was great. I mean, it's hard to, obviously, to make it. It's not really sustainable or scalable channel. But I think what people may want to think about, too, is that doing press isn't necessarily just to say, oh, it's a customer acquisition channel. It's something that can help your other channels. Because at the end of the day, if you are a company and you have at least a little bit of press coverage, it kind of builds trust a little bit.
Because you can be like as seen on TechCrunch or like
it's as seen on TechCrunch, or maybe it's the fact that, you are talking to, you're talking to buyers and they want to make sure you as a company,
you're legit
and you're going to stick around. So if you raise funding, it's crazy for you to not go to press, because that gives you a little bit more like ability to build trust around you as a company. So I think that was really helpful for us. But yeah, I think that like generally, if your audience is not reading or hanging out in a certain place, no matter how good you make your launch there, it's not gonna do much.
Okay. How did you get, or how have you historically gotten press coverage for things? Do you do a lot? Do you just work at an agency? Like
Frankly, press coverage is one of those things we've done. I mean, I think it's like fairly straightforward. Not straightforward. I think that like obviously funding announcements are great, right? And quite frankly, we haven't done too much outside of those. But I think for me, at least the way that we've kind of approached it is anytime we have something special to share, we are kind of getting into the habit of pitching press. And I think it's like, as a startup, as a founder, it's useful to have this as a muscle. I don't think we're necessarily the best example of it, but what I can tell you is like, it doesn't have to just be like press in terms of like TechCrunch, etc. It could be you as, again, I believe, and I'm starting to do it more now, I believe that as a founder, you need to think about, do you want to have your own brand? Do you want to lean on social, right? Yep. Do you want to build that into your kind of like
going direct? That's the current thing, how you describe it. Yeah.
Right. Going direct, because I think it's amazing when you can get press and you have something interesting for press, but just think of other things you can develop. Product Hunt is one, building a community for your own customers somewhere is another. Maybe it is, I'll give you an example. We're hosting a really cool live event soon. And it's like, and we actually did something like this, like a really fun kind of launch live celebration. We did this when we were a very young company too. When you build your own kind of like thing, you have full control over it, and you have ability to just like generate excitement with your customers. That is something that does not cost money. That is something that every company can develop. And over time that can grow and turn into your sort of like, I don't want to say media, but it is almost like that.
Owned media.
Media.
So you might be like, oh, we really want to like talk about this thing. We need some reporter to cover it, and just it's not interesting to anyone and no one wants to cover it. And you're like, fuck, I just need somebody to write about this. But if you have your own channel, I mean, it's like every day. Like I think you started tweeting a little bit more lately. I have. Right. And you're just started. Like, you're sharing stories like from the trenches of like what I learned from my customers or feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, look, I started doing it. I'll tell you what happened. I actually used to do this in the early days a lot, because going back to this fact that when you don't really have any money, you're going to be creative and you're going to try. Suddenly you're going to see what's possible, right?
Yeah.
So I did a lot of what now people say, I know it's trendy to say sort of building in public. I didn't realize it was building in public, but I was doing some of this when we were just starting out. And then I think at some point I kind of stopped doing it. I don't know, just, of course, so many other problems, so many things to figure out, kind of got really focused on what we're doing, internally. But I later realized that those stories, like me going out there and kind of talking about the why behind a launch, or talking about the sort of like really kind of not just saying, hey, we have the new thing, but talking about why we're doing it and what's so special about it. The kind of like the behind the scenes of a thing we're doing. That is what helped us get here. And I think that people are tired of marketing messages. People want to connect with other people.
Yeah.
And that's going to be more impactful than maybe like a very polished marketing message.
Yeah. Well, one thing I really want to ask you, what was COVID like? Like anything big, like new adoption? Did people leave? How did customer behavior change at all during COVID?
COVID was, well, I think for our company, it was great. But one thing I actually still don't know, to be honest, is how much of it was COVID and how much of it was us actually having the right product and being ready. Because you see, obviously we didn't know what's going to happen. Leading up to COVID, we actually built a lot of the key things we needed to do. Like we finally built like the first version of a Teams product. And that was something that was important for us because we obviously wanted to grow with our customers. And we had this thing where a company would adopt OpenPhone, but then as they grow, hit certain roadblocks and, we can't like keep up with what they need. So we needed to have a Teams product, which we finally developed and we had.
Okay.
Also, we created our desktop app. Basically, we finally had the product that was the right product for our customers.
And it was just the perfect timing.
And COVID hit.
Okay.
So I sometimes wonder how much of it was COVID only, or was it just that like we finally, when product market fit happens, it feels.
Was there a little bit of like an inflection point?
Oh, there was. Oh yeah.
Really?
Like,
okay.
The product market fit was. I know those moments really well because when you hit it for the first time, your number one problem is customer support. Because you just get so much, you get inundated with, you have people who are customer support / inbound sales, right? You basically have people who are trying to use the product and you just need to make it possible for them. And I know we hit that during COVID. And maybe the one interesting thing that was very specific to COVID is that we had a lot of inbound from like government offices and institutions that I think normally would not probably come to OpenPhone.
Yeah, they'd be using like some Cisco
because they were
legacy.
Because going they would have people who have to work from home now and they have these desk phones. So
interesting.
We had that demand, which was, I think, that demand was very COVID. I would attribute it to COVID.
Okay.
But the rest of it was really just honestly us having a product for the market.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's good. You also in 2020 started really investing a little bit more in SEO.
Yes.
How did that go?
There was a bit of an aha moment, realizing that, oh my God, this can be a channel for us. And
why hadn't you done it? I mean, that's when you're talking about scalable channels.
Yes.
I'm like, Reddit, Facebook group doesn't seem scalable. SEO does, like, that's
oh
like tried and true.
I know. Hey, in retrospective, but there's actually two things though. And I know this is I'm going to sound so old now. But in 2017, 2018, there was still the concept of companies having a Medium blog.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
You remember that? Okay.
Like sort of, yeah. And now we if you publish something on Medium, like there's something wrong.
Well, I think that, you're publishing something, you want the authority to go to your blog, to your domain, right? That's the whole point, right? You want to be ranking for things and you want the traffic to go to your website, right?
So you were still publishing.
I was publishing. So you're asking me, yes, we did Reddit, we did all these things, but on top of that, I guess I don't talk about it much because I'm afraid of people thinking like, oh my God, what were you thinking?
So this whole time you were also writing on Medium.
Oh, I was also, oh my God, I was writing on Medium. I also was doing, this was actually pretty smart, to be honest.
Okay.
I would pitch myself as a guest, I did some guest blogging. So instead of, essentially what happened, I'll tell you what happened. What happened in 2020, early 2020, is we finally got everything set up to just have our WordPress, to have our blog. And I think I finally realized, frankly, that okay, it's time for whatever content I have in my head, whatever content I'm putting on other people's blogs or on Medium, again, Medium, I know, or these forums where I'm, answering questions and I'm maybe contributing content to Reddit or to this other forum, but I don't really own any of it. At the end of the day, I realized we should have our own blog. Should have done it sooner, 100%, but it happened in 2020. And there was that beautiful moment when I could see we're finally starting to rank for the terms that we wanted to rank for. Nothing crazy, no insane terms, but lower
business
CPC.
phone.
Well, it took us a while to rank for that, by the way. But we started ranking for maybe I don't know, Google Voice alternatives in Canada, very long kind of.
But that's specific. That's somebody who knows they want an alternative to
But
Google Voice.
it's very specific. But but that's how you kind of you get you get you in, right? Because obviously when you are a smaller company and you're a new site, you're a newer brand, small team. At the time, I remember finally hiring one of our first freelance writers to help out, right?
Okay.
We just then, we had to kind of have an angle and go for terms where we could compete. Competing on something like business phone, it's very expensive, and you also have to have a lot of domain authority.
So you use the esoteric keywords to build domain authority, and then you can compete?
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we wrote a lot of things. But I think the interesting thing is, by the way, we're talking about it 2024, right? There's AI results all over Google. I mean, it's a very different world out there. I think what helped us, frankly, with our content strategy at the time, what really worked for us was that some of these things that we were doing, and like I was writing some of this as well, it's kind of like, I think we were going for terms. Again, we were going for terms where the person searching for it is really in need of a solution like us. Okay. And also, I think we were kind of like just a little bit more open and a little bit more honest. We weren't like very marketing or salesy, perhaps.
Okay.
We were just trying to meet the consumer demand. So that was kind of our approach.
So there's demand for certain keywords and finding solutions, and you would like create content to fill in and rank for those words. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And we were trying always to kind of like have useful content and provide like a unique angle, but that is what worked. I know right now, if you were to do that today, it's a lot harder because AI search, the whole world of Google looks different.
Yeah. So content today, how do you think about the content approach you should use today in 2024? Oh, it's almost 2025.
Oh my God, right. We should just say that.
Yeah. Going forward, we'll say.
I think there are several things, and frankly, this is kind of like what we're doing. The reason I'm out there, tweeting and sort of like sharing my story and kind of the reason I'm doing sort of founder-led content now, it's a thing, is because that's one of the things that kind of works, right? Google is going to keep eating up space in search, and there's going to be more like AI results. But one thing that we do know is that you need to have other channels. So maybe the step one, have a portfolio of channels. Don't rely on a single channel.
But don't you probably want a single channel early on?
Yes. But you see, I think it kind of changes as you scale. I think that I think it's still possible to do as an early stage company to win doing SEO. But I think that you need to have your kind of like both unique point of view. Also, it has to actually make sense for your business model. Maybe I should go back a little bit. Yeah. The thing is that for the reason why we invested in content and started building out kind of content is because there is already a ton of search on Google of people looking for a solution like ours. If I'm a founder and I'm building something for a problem that you never think to search for, it makes no sense to invest in SEO, right? You need to do advocacy. You need to do customer education. If you're building something that no one really is searching for, you can't just be like, all right, I'm going to go write for a bunch of keywords. For us, the reason why that worked and that still made sense is because of just that pure volume of demand. We could pick a weird sort of like long tail keyword and write about it and still get a very meaningful number of trials and customers. But for a lot of companies, it does not make sense.
Would you any advice then on like discovering, like let's say, okay, so you can go into Google, there's like keyword ranking type. Yeah. You can like see what people are searching. So you maybe go there. How would you decide then, maybe I should do more founder-led content? How would you decide that's the way to go?
Right. Oh, that's a great question. I mean, so yes, there are a lot of tools. I personally use like Ahrefs, for example. It's this SEO tool that
This is Ahrefs?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, we'll throw a link in the show notes.
It's amazing. I love it. I still like love checking it out. You can see kind of sort of search demand. You can see both search demand and also difficulty, right? Like there's a lot of demand for something.
Like ability to compete.
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the reason why we started out, going back to that question of like, we started out writing content for topics and keywords where there was decent demand, but the ability to, there was not much of a barrier to entry. So we picked easy keywords.
They weren't competitive.
We tried to find those like wedges.
Yep.
And we did a bunch of them, right? Now, if I'm a founder and if I'm thinking, okay, what should I do? I mean, well, first of all, I think that for SEO, like if there's already like pre-existing demand for what you're building, you're entering a mature space, that's one factor. Another factor is looking at competitors, Do you see what your competitors are doing? Do you find angles that you can be unique? Because at the end of the day, you need to be able to say something different. Then you can't just say exactly what your competitors are saying, and those sites are going to get all the traffic, right? Do you have a unique point of view? Do you have an interesting story? Also, quite frankly, I don't know if every founder should be doing content, to be honest, because I think that it's hard, and if you don't enjoy it, and if you feel like it's not something that you actually genuinely like doing, I don't know if you're going to get the upside.
Yeah. A big thing in content creation in general is burnout. So it is really hard to consistently put yourself out there, not even from in like a startup founder mindset, but also if you create beauty content or like video game streaming content, like every day, years in a row, constantly going out there. If you don't enjoy it, super hard.
It's crazy. The burnout is crazy. And I'll tell you this, right? Like going back to sort of like, it's about your business model too. Like, for example, for us, we have a large TAM. We have a lot of ground that we cover with a product, a lot of existing search. And for our space, it makes sense that content is a key distribution channel. But you might be a company that is selling to government, to enterprise, where every contract is worth, I don't know, millions.
$8 million.
Exactly, $8 million. So you have like...
That's the steak dinner
the whales,
strategy.
right? Yeah. The steak dinner strategy, you actually have to get really good at sales. For us, from a distribution perspective, we're more marketing-led. We're like product-led, of course, all these terms. Product-led, marketing-led. We're much more product and marketing, and sales is there to sort of like assist and kind of like help out, versus companies that are sales-led. If you're a founder of a sales-led company, then you should actually be maybe ignoring all of this and just get really good at sales.
Yeah.
It's like true enterprise sales.
Yeah, well, and then there's also like the interesting approach. Like if you just use like OpenAI and Sam Altman. So it's a consumer product, but it's also enterprise deals. I mean, what does he do? He goes on a bunch of podcasts. People know about him. It's like mass market, but it's also helpful for recruiting. So
100%.
I don't think there's probably like a single person in business, like the professional business setting, that hasn't heard of ChatGPT. And I would say like a decent amount, depending on how close you are to tech, about Sam Altman. So it's like, I'd meet this guy. Like I'd see what he's selling or whatever. Like I think there's definitely a benefit also to just like with Elon, right? Like a similar type of thing. That's probably actually more so, where you're like, you might just actually be like, you might not want to buy the product. You're like, sure, I take a meeting with Elon Musk. Why not? And it just like gets you in front of people too. So totally. I don't know. I think there's definitely like a benefit. It's maybe like threading the needle though. You still do have to be able to sell.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just kind of like, it's interesting also. Depends on the stage of your company, right? I think like if content is the key, it goes back to like, what are your key distribution motions? If content, like for us, content is a key distribution channel. So I spend too much time probably thinking or creating content, but it makes sense for us because it's a key distribution channel. But if we had maybe another channel that was the key distribution channel, perhaps I would be spending more time there.
But then, and you've recently started, I don't know how recently, but you're starting to kind of get some bigger enterprise customers.
Yep.
What have you learned throughout that, transitioning from literally SMB one person to now bigger enterprise deals? Yeah,
well, I would say, look, I think, so first of all, the one interesting thing is that SMB is a really wide range. Everyone's kind of definition of SMB is different. Frankly, we're kind of like we're selling to larger SMBs because a company with 500 employees technically is still considered a small business. Again, depends on your definition, right? We have some customers above that range, so to speak. But I think that the piece that I've kind of learned is that a lot of times you should be pulled into upmarket by your existing customers. This is why it's so great to be serving startups and fast-growing small businesses, is because they can actually show you what enterprise looks like before you go have a cold pitch meeting, and they kind of ease you into it. So what has really helped us, right, is essentially by serving startups and these companies that are going to grow and add a bunch of licenses on OpenPhone, add a bunch of users, they are now, quote, mid-market or whatever, I guess, whatever label you want to give them. They're now much larger, and we get to see what their product experience is, and we get to understand what they care about. But they've been with us this whole time. So we've developed a great relationship, of course, and we kind of know what to expect. So then when we go and talk to someone who is starting at that point, we know what to say. So I think our experience has been more gradual and more like have our customers guide us there versus go out and start pitching to a whole new segment that we are not familiar with.
Okay, yeah. It's almost like it's like a much warmer
we're growing with them.
Yeah.
We're growing with them. And I think that's kind of, at least in our case, that's what's happening. And I think it's easier because you get to, essentially you get to know what to expect around the corner versus going and having a bunch of cold meetings.
Not just all these different like sales, marketing motions, you also have always been very focused on design as a company. I mean, that probably helps convert all the things you're doing on the growth and the marketing side. Why focus on design? Why is it so important?
Frankly, so this goes back this actually goes to like starting OpenPhone and both me and Maher kind of both being very UX sort of obsessed and really having appreciation for design. So that's kind of, it all starts there. Frankly, it's also building trust. And I think that for us, as an example, we're building trust, and we're also entering a space that has been kind of very underloved from a perspective of design. Beautiful design and kind of creating a product that people actually enjoy using is almost like a part of our value proposition because we are in a busy space with a lot of clunky solutions, a lot of services that like do all these different things. For us, design is the core part of our value prop. It's not an afterthought. It's not like a add-on, like, oh, we're going to do these features, but we're also going to do them nicely. Like, no. The whole idea of what we're doing is we're trying to make it easier for businesses to build stronger relationships with their customers through communication. And we just see that design is paramount to our ability to deliver this. So for us, design is just a core component of the product. It's not something that we kind of added on top. And also, I have to say, a lot of times when founders talk to me about it, you just need to hire incredible designers. We have an amazing design team. Like if you think your product needs to be very functional, very beautiful, it also starts with just building a strong team around it. If
I do not have good design right now, like I'm not a design-led company, any advice on how to shift? Because you just said it needs to be part of the DNA.
Yes.
Should I start from scratch, or like how do you build it?
Oh man, yeah, this is tough, right?
Because can you transition into being more of a design-led company if you're not?
You can. I mean, I think you can definitely take steps towards it, but I think that maybe you need to. It really kind of starts from kind of design culture, and I think it almost is about nurturing that culture on the not just on the design team, but generally in the company, where like if you are a founder and if you kind of wake up one day, you're like, oh man, we really need to do this. I think that it's possible. It's going to be very tough, but if you're really committed to it, if you hire the right people and sort of really champion design, not just in external things, but also in internal things. I think that's like the interesting part. At OpenPhone, when you look at how we do design for like internal comms, or we do all hands. Our all hands deck is like so beautiful, so incredible. I know I'm biased, of course, but we care about it. So we take the time to do it for internal things too. And you can't, so you can't skip that part. So if you're a founder, if you wake up again one day thinking like, hey, we have to be design-led, design-driven.
Yep.
Again, it's probably possible, but just probably have to kind of go back several steps to do that.
Yeah. And is design like pretty buttons and colors, or is it like efficient, like routing the consumer in an efficient way of using like intuitive button layout, all that stuff? Like, is that a key component of it?
I really think that design is about how something works, right? Of course, like visually having something beautiful that like is pleasing, like that's great. But to me, it's about how something works. And the thing about kind of design as it relates to our product is that we are the kind of product that people kind of live in, because you're calling and messaging customers all the time.
That's true. If you're customer support, 40 hours a week probably for the customer support employee.
100%. Yeah. You're talking to customers. Or if you're, you're like, we are the kind of that product that connects you with your customers. Mm-hmm. So it's super high stakes, and you are spending a lot of hours in the product. So for us, like every interaction, every button, everything you do needs to be efficient and needs to be saving you time, because we think of what we do as we allow you to have stronger relationships with your customers through communication. We're not just giving you calling and messaging for the heck of it. So we have to be helping you get closer to your ultimate goal versus just giving you kind of like buttons, etc.
Yeah, a better phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But I feel like it's a good way to tie it all out, bring it all back from the very beginning of like making the phone better.
Absolutely.
Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening. Make sure to check out the show notes if you want to go deeper on some of the topics mentioned throughout the conversation. If you like this episode, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, commented, followed, and shared it with a friend who can learn from it. And if you don't want to miss future episodes, subscribe to my newsletter, The Split, in the show notes, and you'll get links plus a transcript for every new episode emailed directly to your inbox. Thanks again for listening. See you in the next episode.
Hey everyone, Eric here. At Turpentine, we're building the first media outlet for tech people by tech people. We're the network behind the show you're listening to right now. We have a slate of hit shows across a range of topics and industries, from our AI and investing cluster of podcasts to shows that drive the conversation in tech with the most interesting thinkers, founders, investors, and influencers, like Econ 102 with Noah Smith. We're launching new shows every week, and we're looking for industry-leading sponsors. If you think that might be you and your company, email me at ericaturpentine.co. That's ERIK at turpentine.co, and let's partner together.